Hello and welcome to the Geoff Jones and Friends Make It Better podcast. I know we've not had the intro yet, but that must mean I've got something important to say. I'm going to give a massive trigger warning for this special PTSD Awareness episode, and that's for a few reasons. One, the guys talk about some dark experiences in a lot of detail that I and others would just find horrific. Two, the experiences and life stories of these three are real, and it happened to them. Number three, a result of PTSD is suicide. The three gentlemen on this episode have all been close to and know people who have committed suicide. They've all stood on the edge. And four, at the end, the guys make jokes, they have a laugh, they riff with each other, a few about suicide, about mental health, but not because these things are funny, but because their experiences and rehabilitation have brought them to a place where they can laugh about where they were at that stage of their life. But don't judge people on how they deal with grief. We all have our own path.
In a world desperate to tear itself apart, only one man, and some other people, stand in the way of total destruction. Together they will right the wrongs, make bad good, and single-handedly destroy evil, together. Who is this man, you may ask? This man is Geoff.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Geoff Jones and Friends Make It Better, the show that takes one of life's little annoyances, gives them a microphone, a guest, and a podcast to quite simply make everything better. On this National PTSD Awareness Day special, I'm delighted to welcome not one, not two, but three guests. The first time I've ever had more than one person on, so let's see the carnage unfold. But I'm joined by veterans, comedians, Invictus Games competitors. I am getting up in the world with this podcast. Previous guest and inspiration for this special, Jay Saunders. Say hello, Jay.
Hiya, folks.
Rich Waldrom, welcome for the first time.
Hi, all.
And Gabe Murphy. Murphy, how are you?
Grand. How are you now? Are you well?
Yes, not too bad. All the better for having you, gentlemen. So we had a little chat beforehand. This will be released, so hopefully people are listening to this on National PTSD Awareness Day. Jay was on before; he's done a special, but the episode had such a massive response, or certainly for this podcast. And with National PTSD Awareness Day around the corner, it just seemed natural just to get you guys on. Jay kind of introduced you almost on the original podcast, but just I want to hear stories. I want to hear. Yeah, just what's it like with PTSD? You all have PTSD, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, all three of us.
Just kind of any experiences. Yeah, the response I had was it's not spoken about enough. So if just for a little bit of time today, let's have a little chat about it. Everyone happy with that?
Well, given they listened to me last time, you boys go first.
Well, I you know they got much nicer voices than you as well, Jay. So it's
thanks for that, mate. I really appreciate it. I'll just put the dog on.
Oh, right. To me, anyone listening is here for Hawk. Let's face it.
Yep, it's all about the dog.
Yeah, always all about the dog. I think, just to kind of pick up on that, I think I'm still processing what PTSD means for me. Meeting people like Jay and Gabe now and various others as well, you realize that PTSD affects everybody very differently, but there are core elements of the illness that are uniform, that run through it, rob you of your self-worth. And I think that's the same of everybody, and it certainly robbed me of my own identity and my self-worth, of feeling like that lack of just not worthy. You're just not worthy. And the for me, being a veteran, it robbed me of that identity. It robbed me of feeling like I was worthy to belong to such a special group. I had all my fingers, I had all my toes. I have a loving family. I have a good job. What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with me. It's and that really eats away at you like a cancer. But you don't there's nothing to tell you that it's PTSD. It's only when you sit down and you get that kind of diagnosis, and then you go, okay, but then it's not so much the PTSD itself; it's all its non-optional extras. It's all the bits and pieces that come with it as well, all the accessories that come with it, the OCD, the anxiety, the panic attacks, and I remember the first trigger for me. I was on a plane. Coming out of Bristol Airport. And at the time I was working in sort of international business. I was traveling all over, all over the world. So a quick jolly over to Paris to go and have some meetings was a regular Tuesday for me. And I got on this plane. It was about 3:00 on a Tuesday afternoon. It was an EasyJet flight. And as it was pulling out, I just lost it. And when I say I lost it, I don't actually know, because the next thing I remember is being at the front of the plane, scaring the shit out of the poor air hostess, saying, I need to go back to terminal. And then they took me back to terminal, and I remember standing there going, what the hell just happened? And I rang my wife, driving home, and I said, you won't believe this. I think I've just had a panic attack. That's really weird. Rah, rah, rah. Anyway, the next week I had to go out for the meeting, but I thought, we won't bother with the flight. We'll take the train. And I started having panic attacks in elevators, even in traffic. So even in traffic, where big motorways, just the traffic lights would come on, and I'd feel that anxiety come up, and I developed a massive fear of flying, all within the matter of weeks. And I thought, all right, I probably need to do some digging here and find out what it was. And when I started having some therapy sessions, the way it was articulated to me, which made sense and still to this day does, that the trauma or the traumas, whatever it was that had originally caused the original PTSD, the mind had buried. And they said, if you imagine your mind to be like a filing tray, and suddenly, life had got a little bit easier in terms of a loving family and, all of that sort of stuff. So the brain had sort of gone, right, we're now down to this stuff at the bottom of this filing tray that you've left there, and I need to get your attention. And so it got my attention in an environment that I was very comfortable in, planes and those sorts of things. And it really screwed me over for a while, but it made sense to me that the way the brain kind of rang the alarm bell and said, there's something here that we need to address.
Do you mind me asking, Rich, where your PTSD stems from? Obviously, you don't have to.
No, of course. So I discovered that actually what I have is a condition called complex PTSD. And when they diagnosed that, I was like, well, all right, what's the difference? And in simple language, the difference between PTSD and complex PTSD is PTSD usually, not always, but usually comes from one trauma. Complex comes from various different types of trauma. And in all honesty, so most of my military service was in the Balkans in the 90s. I did 3 tours of Bosnia right the way through, from UN in the early days, right the way through to NATO, I4 and S4. I was 18 when I first went in. 18. And I could fill several podcasts with anecdotes and stories, and it was fucking horrible. Is the only way I can really describe it. It was a horrible, horrible place to be. It was a horrible thing to witness what human beings were prepared to do to each other. The inability we had as UN troops to stop the murder, the rape, the villages you drive through at 3:00 in an afternoon, and there's just women and children there because the men have already been taken away or they were off fighting, and then you'd come back through the same village the next morning and there's just bodies in the street. And I as part of my recovery process, I have wanted to sort of talk more about it. And actually my eldest son, at school, they were looking at peace and conflict within a religious studies module, and he happened to mention that I was a veteran, and his teacher agreed to change that particular module from Vietnam to Bosnia, and asked if I would be willing to come in and talk to the kids. And I was like, well, my wife was like, are you sure? You know what? Yes, yes, I actually owe it to the 59 Brits that didn't come back, to the thousands of people that did, to go and talk about it. I didn't go into details, these are teenagers, but I gave them some context, and I talked about the difficulties we found as troops there at the time to see this level of murder and rape and just the worst of humanity and be unable to do anything about it. So for me, I think that was largely where things came from for me. And obviously my career carried on after that, and there were various other things, but that's the thing that I go back to. That's the thing I still struggle with. And when Ukraine kicked off last year, there's a horrible amount of similarities between what's going on in Ukraine in terms of the brutality, in terms of the displacement of Ukrainians, moving them into Russia. The awful lot of similarities, 20 years apart, nearly 30 years apart in some cases. So, but it's it's something that people understand. I'm keen that people, because the problem with the Bosnia conflict was it wasn't our war. We weren't there to, it's not like, there's an opposing force. It was very much you're there to stop people killing, raping, murdering, and when you couldn't, it became really quite frustrating. So, kind of long-winded answer, but personally, and certainly through the counselling and the therapy that I've had, we seem to think that much of my trauma comes from that conflict zone more than anything else.
And that was when you were 18. You were in Bosnia.
I was 18 when I first went. And what was my last tour? 99, Kosovo. So I did 3-4 tours in the whole province, in the whole area, backwards and forwards. Right from the UN in Yugoslavia, so in Sarajevo, right the way through to. So in some ways, at the time, I thought, well, this is great because I'm seeing the progress. I'm seeing it at its absolute worst, right the way through to some relative peace and conclusions. And I think for a long time that probably helps. You have that kind of youthful bravado as well. It's only when really you kind of come out, and this is why they say these things take so long to come out. Because it's only as you mature and then you realize, I think, how horrific some of these things were. You become a father. I have three amazing kids, and you look and you see them, and I pulled babies out of holes in the ground because they were a Muslim or because they were a Croat. And I've got a 3-year-old son, I've got a 15-year-old son, I've got a 12-year-old daughter. So now I'm deep into my recovery journey. I'm able to kind of look back and understand where these sort of things came from. But I just don't think, and I think my brain just kind of buried it all, kind of kept it all away. But in the end, and I'm very good at putting a front up. I think anybody who's got PTSD, you're very, very good at putting a front up. And when I sort of came out, so to speak, earlier this year, there was so many of I'm fortunate to have a good couple of really good friends, so many family who had no idea. There were one or two that went, well, that explains a lot, but no idea, because we put this kind of front up. And I think you wear that mask for so long that I think, I don't know, but I think in my experience, I think I'd worn that mask, I'd worn that identity for so long that the real me, if you like, the real that wanted this to come out, I've managed to suppress it for so long, and eventually it burst out.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think it's this is about making things better as well, and I think this is one of the key messages all three of us would want to share is sort of like, especially from military veterans. That end up with a diagnosis of PTSD. For the majority of us, all the guys I meet in Invictus through Project Comedy, even the people I've met with PTSD on the comedy circuit, it's been a slow burn. It's not you have the trauma, you instantly develop PTSD. It happens much later in life. It takes you a long time to realize it. But the point is, once you actually get the diagnosis, do you know what? That's not the end of life. It's, there are things you can do, like Gabe and I do comedy. Rich and I are on the Invictus squad and things like that. There are things you can end up doing that after that slow burn and you feel like your identity's been stripped of you and your life the way it was before has been taken away, there are still options out there you can go into that will give you a new form of value.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that for me, the turning point was the diagnosis. I don't mind admitting, when I got my letter from Combat Stress and I opened it up and I read it, 2 pages, I just broke down. There was a validation in that diagnosis. Whilst it wasn't good news, there was half a page listing all the shit that was wrong with me. In so many ways, it was good news because it was valid. I'd been, there was something that was all of the things that I'd become to loathe about myself, or the dark moments when, and you have some really dark moments that scared the shit out of me, and you think you're weak and you think you're this, and actually you were suddenly, a professional has assessed you and said, these are the reasons that you feel that way. There was, it was scary, but it was a relief at the same time, if that makes sense. There was a validity in that. There was some sort of weird comfort in that. That okay, then you just ignore it and go back to a couple of years.
Hearing us, first of all, thank you, Rich, because that was, I don't know, that's gut wrenching. That's what you've experienced. Those people, I can imagine anything experiencing that on any level. Just is so far past anything that I can mentally just comprehend, like being in that situation. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing. And what I'll just throw a question out to Gabe if I can, that I mean, if you had that kind of slow burn as well, did you have an inkling that it was PTSD? Did you think it was just depression or stress? Like, how did it manifest, and how did you process?
For me, I didn't know anything about it until I did a course where we did a mental health week, and a lot of other people on the course were saying, I've got PTSD and I go through X, Y, and Z. So I was just sat there going, well, I do that as well. I was like, oh, lovely. I've heard about this PTSD thing now. Let's go and find out about it. So did a little bit more research into it, and I went to the doctor and said all the bits and bobs that I was doing, scared the shit out of my doctor, and then we carried on. We went down that line.
So literally had no kind of.
I didn't know anything. So how it affects me as well is I get like quite recurring nightmares a lot. Sometimes I can't remember them because I completely disassociate from everything, and it's almost like I've blacked out, and then I'll pop up again a couple of hours later. And I thought that was because I was working too hard or I was doing nights and days. So I thought like, oh, my sleep pattern's all messed up. That's why I'm awake at 2 o'clock in the morning, panicking, thinking, and obviously my heart's racing and I'm sweating because it's hot, or I think I should be in work, or I'm remembering something that I might have forgotten. I'd always pass it off as something else. And all these little things that would always wind you up, I likened it to having a bottle of Coke, or whatever pop you like to drink, and anything that would happen, I'd shake it up and then put it on the table, and then something else had happened that would wind me up, and I'd shake it up again and I'd put it on the table, and it was just like that. And then eventually the fucking bottle would just burst, and I'd go off and do something stupid, like fucking drink God knows how much, get into start arguments, go off and have pick fights with obvious drug dealers, just shit like that. And it was all in hope that someone would kill me, basically. And I'd have all these catastrophic, they were called catastrophic fantasies. So I'd be driving to work and a HGV would be coming the other way, and I'd be like, I wonder what would happen if I just, yeah.
And do you know what, as you said that, Gabe, like the other two, so this is audio only, but the other two guys just nodding away, that feeling of just hope that at that time the only way to solve this is, well,
oh, let something horrible happen to me. Let something horrible happen to me because I deserve it, and it would end it. And that's the way you feel. You feel like you deserve it and you want somebody to end it.
and you're always constantly telling yourself as well, like everyone would be so much better off without me. I am just a drain on this. Everyone around me deserves so much more because they are so cool and they are so this and that and and you just say like, I should be. But I still say it now. I should be better. I should be better than this. I should be happier. There's nothing wrong. So why am I not like that? And a lot of my friends always say, like, and a lot of my therapists used to say as well, all the things that you're thinking and how you're feeling, you shouldn't be feeling like that. And I was like, I know. Thanks for fucking telling me.
It's that beautiful moment of cognitive dissonance, isn't it? You're there going, I know I shouldn't feel this way, but it's the only emotion I know how to feel. I am programmed to feel this way now.
I'm just going to write you a prescription of if you could just change, that would be great.
I actually said to one of the therapists, like, you do realize you've been to university 3 years now to just tell me, hey, do you ever think about not being sad?
Yes, gentlemen, all we need to do is cheer up a bit and zip up our man suits and we'll be fine. Everything will be hunky-dory if we just cheer up a bit.
It was just like the Conservatives making you feel better. It's like, oh, you're poor, get more money.
No problem solved. Yeah, it's great. But to just pick on the point that Gabe made there, that was the going looking for fights, looking for trouble. So one of the things I used to do was cause fights with my wife. I was horrible, awful. I would, the slightest thing she might have said or spoken to me. I mean, she's a 5 foot, half jock, half Irish, so I've got my work cut out anyway. But
Christ, you still got your fucking head.
She is absolutely the love of my life, and she's an amazing woman in so many different ways. But like most women, she can have a cutting tongue, and most of us, and certainly nowadays, we can't tend to let it roll over us. But there were times when she might make a comment that I would take as disrespectful or talking down to me or condescending, and the walls would come up, or the shutters down, whichever you prefer. I would just go stone cold with her, and I would for days, and I would want to cause a fight. I would want to drive her away because I didn't deserve to be in this happy marriage with this one woman. And that sounds when you say it like that, you're like, well, that's obviously just not the case. But the emotion that you felt at the time, that it was absolutely overwhelming. I did not want to be with this woman. I didn't, and she had to, because I deserved it. She had to absolutely rip me to pieces, throw me out, do whatever, because I was a horrible prick.
I've got a random question for you two guys, because I've never asked it of other people with PTSD. Because for me, it almost feels like the one emotion I can relate to the best, the one I can understand the best, is anger. Anger is something that feels, so I look for anger. I end up finding situations where I can find anger because I can justify it, I can understand it, I can relate to anger so much easier than being loved or respected or applauded. I will force myself into a situation where I can become angry.
Yeah. Luce and I, as I sort of progressed, and I sort of opened up to Luce and talked more and more about it, and I described this anger as sounds stupid, as a kind of monster buried deep down inside, a deep anger that I've kept buried for all these years. And sometimes it takes all my effort, all my concentration to just hold on to the tail of this thing, to stop it bursting out of me, because I was terrified what it would do if I and I remember sitting there and just squeezing my hands and trying to describe that as all I'm doing is really holding on to this thing. So Luce and I had a deal that if I was going in anger mode and looking to, whether she was pissed off with me or not, whether she was legitimately, she would hug me. She would just stop, you give it 10 minutes and she would just hug me. And that would bring me out. That would bring me out of it straight away. But it's self-destructive. Like, it's like, if you go in and you're picking fights with drug dealers, I'm trying to bring down my wife and marriage and everything else.
Do you know what? I was going to say, Gabe's out looking for fights with drug dealers. You're picking fights with 5 foot Irish Scotsmen. I don't know who's got the better chance, to be honest.
No,
at least in my defence, the only person I get to argue with is Hawk, and it's a one-sided conversation.
When you're in that mindset as well, it's like everything is like you're trying to fit a square block into a round hole. Nothing fits, nothing works until you get into that place where you want where you feel like it should be. And then it's like a self-reassertion thing. It's like, oh, this is, everything is shit because I'm a piece of shit. And, because I'm this and I'm that and the other. And then instantly it's like that round hole becomes a square hole and it just instantly slots all in.
I got 2 beautiful examples of it that I've done with the boys. So if I turn around and go, so Gabe and I did the Brighton Fringe Festival a little while ago. And our first night, we all 3 of us, so Jamie was in there as well, and he's got imposter syndrome rather than PTSD. But all 3 of us are there going, we're not going to get an audience. We don't deserve an audience. This is going to be crap. Nobody's going to enjoy it. And the first laugh each one of us got suddenly was like the biggest, it was the most addictive drug we could have got. It suddenly was, well, somebody in this room actually bloody likes me. Somebody in this room actually is enjoying what we're doing. When Rich and I were in hiding, so we had to be in hiding for nearly a week for the announcement for the Invictus team. We were out the back, puffing away, going, I'm waiting for somebody to tap me on the shoulder, going, nah, we've selected the wrong bloke. It's another Jay Saunders. It's another Rich Waldrom we should have selected. You're the wrong one. And then when we ended up walking out onto that stage in front of the national media, going, fucking hell, it really is me. They really have selected me. It's not an admin error. And we're all staring at each other going, what? Us bunch of lunatics. We are the biggest bunch of tossers ever. Why have you selected us?
Any minute now, you're going to pull the real Team UK out. But yeah,
I thought they were going to walk in stage left just as we got to the stage going, and we replaced this bunch of lunatics with people that deserve it.
One thing which was very notable from Jay's episode, and even a couple of times now, like Rich, before you said about the anger feeling like a monster, you said, "Oh, this is going to sound stupid." It's that self kind of depreciation. I mean, Jay did it so many times. Talking about looks and how you're a woman repellent. Like, is that?
Yeah, but I am.
Obviously now this makes more sense. The fact that actually you just making fun of yourself is the lighter end of just that hatred towards yourself and absolutely no self-worth.
James women repellent isn't anything to do with PTSD. He's just ugly.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that attracts women is the dog. The only thing that attracts women is the dog, and then he will suddenly take a dump at that precise moment and repel them.
I mean, and everyone was saying about like how the voices are nice and everything. I appreciate I've got like the sexiest accent in the world, right? Any girls listening to this, I don't look like fucking Jamie Dornan. Right.
I do have to point something out because Geoff, you've done the stand-up circuit as well. I have never in my life ever seen a comedian send his front row out to go and buy him beers before he performs. That is what Gabe managed to do on our first night. Before we even started, I want you to go and buy me one, and sent the front row out to go and buy him beers.
They offered. They said, "I'll go on then. I'll buy you a pint." Fuck bars that way. Go on.
That's how we try, so we go.
Less talking, brilliant. More walking. Come on.
Yeah. But you are right, Geoff. We were saying that the erosion of that self-deprecation from a military point of view. If the old saying is, if you can't take a joke, you shouldn't have joined. So, from the age of 16, I've been able to, take the piss out of myself and everybody else. And you give it, you can't, if you can't take it, you don't give it. But I think with the way that PTSD erodes that self-image, you absolutely do. From my own point of view, I absolutely wasn't worthy of being considered a veteran. It took me 4 months to apply for the Invictus process because I was a fraud, as far as I was concerned. This wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. It was for real veterans with real injuries. And
Jay said exactly the same. The fact that Jay, I know, so you can articulate it better, but yours wasn't through combat, but it was through the horrors of the Ebola. Because and you are seeing people. So I'm kind of retelling your story, but that you saw people kind of with the blood from the eyes. It was kind of dementia zombie almost state that could kill you with a touch. But you said, even though you've seen that horror, that you felt like you didn't deserve to have that diagnosis.
All three of us will say the same thing. We've got, brothers and sisters in arms that have gone through horrific injuries, and we'll turn around and go, they deserve the status of a wounded veteran. We don't. The only thing that's broke is between my ears, so I don't deserve the title of being a wounded veteran. It's taken me a time to actually deal with that now. And hanging around with, the likes of Gabe and Jamie and the Project Comedy crowd, hanging around with the Invictus squad, and guys and girls turning around going, I couldn't have gone through what you did. And you're talking to a bloke that's had his leg blown off. And he's there going, I couldn't have gone through that, mate. I wouldn't have been able to survive that. And I went, no. You're really injured, mate. Yeah, but I can go to sleep. The brain turns off. Yours doesn't. And we still get imposter syndrome because of that. I suppose still in society, people don't see it as a true injury, don't see it as a true disability. And it's something we're trying to correct and what have you. But it still makes us go, do you know what? They're more deserving of the title of a wounded veteran than we feel. I've got all limbs. I can walk. I can run. Well, no, I was an officer. You never run. It scares the fuck out of the lower decks.
You were in the Navy too. You never fucking run.
Why would I run, young man? My warship's only a certain size.
Gabe, I mean, only if you want to. But obviously, know kind of Jay and Rick's story. What are you happy to share?
Sure. So my PTSD started off a tour that we did in Iraq, and obviously I knew some of the lads who didn't make it back, and then when we did get back, there was an incident that had happened. Basically, my ex-partner decided to try and take my child away. She was very, very young at the time. I think she was like, about 8 months or so. And I'd had her with my family the whole time. And she never saw her, even though that we offered to, bring her up, drive her up, pay for a train, everything. She just didn't bother. And I got the papers saying that she was going to take her away from us when I was out there. And I just completely froze. And we were getting mortared at the time. And my I just completely froze. I was just reading this paper, these papers that I couldn't take it. And two of the lads, my best friends, they got really bad PTSD from that because they had to run into contact, like really bad stuff, and drag me out. And it got to the point where they were so bad that fireworks went off, they would instantly be back there crying. Slam a car door, they'd start wetting themselves, one of the lads wet himself and stuff like this. And then one Friday morning, after we were having a talk and things weren't great. One Friday morning, walked in to check on my mate, and he was hanging in his locker. And then the day after that, my other mate drove his motorbike into a wall. And then obviously, it just all started falling apart from there. And when you've got them bonds that are that tight as well, when they've gone, it should have been me that, and I was all there with the survivor guilt and all that sort of stuff. And it was just really rough. And then falling from that, a couple of other bits and bobs happened, and then I became a paramedic. And then you see the horrible stuff out on the streets, and to the point where dead babies don't bother you and all that sort of stuff. And it was just like, I know something's wrong. And it was It was rough. Yeah, it wasn't the best times, to be fair.
And you're like, it was rough. Like, Jesus Christ, I'm literally here nearly sobbing, and you're like, yeah. I mean, yeah, just that actual, all those situations that kind of compacted. I mean, let alone, I'm a father. I have 2 older children from a previous relationship when I was very young, and yeah, so I'm sitting there hearing you say, oh, I've got the papers, and I'm thinking, oh, you're another country away, and you're dealing with this. I'm thinking I can relate to that. And then you say, and there's mortars going, and I've frozen, and these guys have got to come in and help me. And I'm thinking, oh my God, so I know that must play as a part of it as well, that almost they're coming to save. I don't know if that's the right word to you, but, and then that has, again, I mean, the story of the 3 of you, and I'm sure, as you say, there's people out there that can relate. Not everyone has the same story. I think it's a testament to each of you that you are still here. Yeah. That you chose to make a decision to.
One of my things that Jay kind of touched on it a little bit. As far as like I said, this is going to be like for PTSD awareness and all that sort of stuff. Everyone who's always gone through something will always say, but they've gone through worse. It doesn't matter. It's not about anyone else. It's all about you. What you're going through might cripple me, and what other people are going through, I wouldn't be able to hack. Some things that I'm, and anyone who's thinking the stuff that they're going through is not enough. If it's troubling you, it's enough.
It's one of the things that's ingrained into us as servicemen. You fight to win. You fight to win. You fight to win. And if you're not winning, you feel like a failure. But then when you see, the fight that Gabe's gone through, the fight that Rich has gone through, I can instantly relate to their PTSD better than I can relate to my own, because I think the trauma they've gone through is worse than mine. And they'll turn around and say the same thing to me. And it's this thing of, anybody listening to this, any trauma you've gone through, it's not a freaking competition. It's what it does to you. You can't scale this on a scale of 1 to 10. None of us can turn around and say our injury is an 8 out of 10 and what have you. It's individual. What it does to you, it does to you. So go out there, get help, find activities, find something that brings you a bit of joy, because you're still entitled to have a bit of joy.
No weakness there as well. One of the things I've learned, and actually probably one of my turning points, or one of the light bulb moments, I describe them as better. I sat here, right here at this desk, and I was just bawling my eyes out. I don't know why. I don't know what. I could just feel the emotion coming out of me. I was just cry. My wife was at work. Noah was at nursery, and I was just bawling. And the appeal of just walking away, just ending it, just walking to the local train track, throwing yourself in the local canal, whatever it was. I hadn't picked something, but the appeal of going to that darkest of places was so attractive, I can feel the goosebumps coming up on me now. It felt so good. It felt so like I've tried to describe it to someone as like, when you're a smoker and you've been on a plane for 12 hours and you get to have your first fag and it's great. It was that type of feeling that there's a solution here. It all just goes away. And I suddenly felt better. I suddenly actually stopped crying and I suddenly felt better. And it was only later when I was laying in bed that night, I thought, hang on a minute. Hang on, there's something didn't compute there in the brain, that I could go from being absolutely sobbing my heart out to then suddenly feeling better because I had pretty much made the call that I was going to, in the next couple of days, I was going to end it in some way. And I felt better because of that. I felt a relief, a weight had lifted off, and that frightened the shit out of me. That it that easy, that this illness had just eroded my common sense, had eroded my clear, rational thought process to the point where it wasn't like you might see in the movies or the TV show when a depressed character is about to stick a gun in the mouth and they're weeping and they're crying. And that's the kind of, I think, the stereotypical societal expectation of what someone with depression on the verge of about to kill themselves probably looks like. And I'm not saying that isn't the case for some, but for me, I got to that point and I felt relief, I felt happiness, but thankfully that frightened me in its own right. That frightened me and brought me back. And I say to anybody who's listening to this, the way I thought about this thing is that it had eroded my rational thought process. Who in their right mind, and I clearly wasn't, but you don't feel good about ending it all. You don't feel good about denying your children their father, your wife, their husband, your mother, a son, and you don't feel good. That's not natural to feel good to put them all through that. But that's what it had done to me.
I mean, I got a moment of joy thanks to Gabe, because we connect via Zoom for what we call a green room. This is where we get our wounded, injured, and sick veterans together and do stand-up comedy together and write our routines. And I had recently been discharged after my last real proper suicide attempt. So I ended up in hospital for a couple of days, having myself pumped clear and what have you. And
You're still shit at that, by the way.
Yeah, well, this is what I was going to come back to, mate. Because Gabe turned around to me and it was all a bit dark, and the boys had called out. They called the ambulances and what, there's Gabe in Manchester. I live in Gosport. It was the likes of those guys that actually called the ambulance that actually got to my boat and pulled me off of it. I've actually got genuine friends, and only Gabe could make it light in this way because he is the dark soul of Project Comedy. He turned around and went, "Hold on a second, mate." I use this in my current stand-up routine. Went, "Hold on a second, mate. How many stand-up gigs have you done?" And at that stage, I think I had done about 70 stand-up gigs. He went, "Well, for fuck's sake, mate, doesn't it teach you something?" I went, "What's that?" Because you're better at stand-up comedy than you are at committing suicide. Bang! I suddenly had going, do you know what? I am actually better at making people laugh than I am at killing myself. There must be a reason I'm still living.
Yeah, it's because you're Navy. If you were Army, you'd have done it properly.
Suicidal ideation given by the other service. Thank you so much, sir. I applaud you.
What got me on the road to sort of recovery? Full disclosure, don't do this, kids. I got high on ecstasy, and I remember I was there butt naked on my own. Absolutely, yeah. I was lying naked on my sofa, squeezing my very flaccid penis, humming Amazing Grace. And I was
Sorry, I was singing Amazing Grace. Okay, just humming. Right.
At that time, breathing and the reverberations of the humming, it was the best. And as I was coming around and I was getting like more sober again, I just constantly had this in my head, like, fucking hell, if I felt that good, like that's how normal people's sort of, at that time I thought that's how normal people feel. And I was like, if I felt shit all the time, why can't I feel like that? You know? Yeah. Obviously not to the point where I'd be humming Amazing Grace, but
the penis bit is fine.
Oh, yeah.
It's the Amazing Grace bit that, yeah, normal people don't hum Amazing Grace, Gabe. Come on. Oh, jeez.
I did tell you he's the dark soul of Project Comedy. I did tell you he's the dark soul of Project Comedy.
I've got an image of Gabe naked with his flaccid cock in his hand, humming Amazing Grace. I can't get it out of my head. Thanks very much.
You haven't stayed in an Airbnb with him.
Yeah.
Hopefully changing the song every so often. Oh, actually, no, it's when you're sharing the Airbnb and all of a sudden you hear put it away.
Everyone
Gabe.
just bugs out.
Put it away.
Everyone just fucking bugs out. Just fuck it. Let's go for like at least 20 minutes.
At least let me leave the room first.
Oh, the worst part is poor old Jamie, because he's got massive OCD. He's just running around the place with a flash spray and a cloth, thinking he's got to clean up after him.
Just for the
Just
a
don't,
UV
just
light.
don't have the UV light because it looked like Spider-Man's fucking training room. 90% of that Airbnb now is my DNA. It's a good job it didn't fucking kill anyone down there, isn't it?
I tell what I also loved as well is that you guys are connected so beautifully over PTSD. Yet at the first opportunity of going in at one of the other services, it was in.
I'm the only Matlow in the room. I'm used to it.
The thing is, everyone in the army has got the gold card. Because when anyone says you're a military veteran, everyone automatically thinks it was the army.
Yeah.
And we just smile at that, and we look, we look around, and go on, say you were in the RAF.
It was the worst heckle I got at Brighton. Somebody called me a soldier, and I had to turn around and go, Royal Navy, senior service, fucking sort yourself out.
Double pirates.
The Royal Navy, Uber for Royal Marines.
One of my jokes as well is I say, like, if anybody wants a brief history about, like, Ireland, you lot invaded us because we weren't Catholic, and then a couple of years later you invaded us again because we were too Catholic. Like, fucking make your minds up. We're playing by your rules here.
I freaking love that gag.
Oh, you guys have, so you've got your charge, you've got your PTSD, and the problem is I'm now doing this after some gags, so I'm smiling while saying it. So like I'm really enjoying your misery. Like, oh guys, this is fantastic.
Yay, baby.
But so Rich, you signed up for Invictus Games. Gabe, you're a comedian. Jay's greedy and does them both.
Yeah.
Like, what? I don't know. How good did you have to feel, or at what point were you thinking? I mean, because they're both things. I mean, stand-up comedy is probably the scariest thing. I mean, it's the scariest thing I've ever done. I'm sat with three guys who have just told us a story, but yeah, it's just as someone getting up and putting yourself out there, right? Invictus Games, you're going to compete, which I suppose is that kind of forces mentality. However, yeah, all eyes are on you. It's that risk of win and fail. Like, what made you do it? Like, what made you believe you could do it or want to try it? Like,
from an Invictus point of view, I got pretty low, and I knew I needed to try and do something. And as much as it made my teeth itch to even begin to associate myself as a veteran. You'd always watched the Invictus Games I'd always admired, and I think I saw something on a social media post about the Invictus Games Foundation. So it was like, well, I'll just click that and I'll see what that's about. And then it was like, well, click this and join. You just have to be an eligible veteran. Well, okay, I can do that. But it still took me 4 months to go through that whole process. And then by September last year, I'd finally answered the email and sent my proof of my diagnosis and what have you. I got an email. I think, here's your password. You can log in, and you're now eligible to go and apply for the Invictus pre-selection camps. What I could do was in the November, so I kind of booked it all, and then I forgot about it. But I literally sat here, because I'm in my office in the garden, and I sat on the steps there at 12 o'clock on the Friday, and I had to ring my mum because I'm 47 years old. I had to ring my mother. I wasn't going because I was fully expecting to walk in and be, found out the fraud that it was. And it was, my mum said, look, just go. You've got nothing to lose. You can always leave. And she was absolutely right. I went and I felt very uncomfortable to start with, but over the course of the weekend, I got more and more sort of bedded into the guys being around me and realizing there were more people in and around. But what I was then worried about was, well, what's the point of doing this? Is where the OCD then kicks in, because so, well, what's the point of doing this? Because you're not going to get selected. You're not worthy enough to be selected for the team. So what's the point of doing this? And you're going, well, so then you convince yourself to come out of it, because you're like, well, you're clearly, and you are you disassociate because you're there looking at all the other guys that are being pre-selected and thinking, wow, you guys are going to have a great time in Germany. You know, when you're selected, you're going to have a great time. And it never occurred to me that I would be selected. So, of course, after I'd done the second camp and then it came down to the application, I was like, well, there's just no point. And in the end, it was my wife who encouraged me to do it. But the only way I could do it, I don't know how to kind of articulate this well, and it'll sound strange. The only way I could do it and submit my application was because I was at peace already with the fact that they weren't going to select me. If that makes sense.
Yeah, same here.
I submitted it with I'd already accepted the fact that I'd done the first 2 camps and I'd taken something from them. There was some progress there. I had spent 2 weekends with veterans and nobody had laughed at me. Nobody had called me a fake or a fraud. So that was progress. So I'll let them go and have the games this year and we'll see where we go from there. And the only way I could submit that application was I used it as an exercise in just putting my sort of thoughts and feelings on words and doing a little video. And it sounds
a trial run for a real application.
Yeah. Absolutely no expectations, and everybody says this, I know, because it sounds such a cliche, but that was the only way I could submit the application, was by absolutely being at peace with the fact that they weren't going to reject me. I'd already rejected me, if that makes sense.
I mean there's a clear similarity, obviously on a completely different level, but that peace at failure or end, when you're so sure that fine, it doesn't matter because it's going to go badly, it's going to end, whatever it is, just all of a sudden it's right. Okay, this is
it's
fine.
It's like voting Lib Dem in Gosport. It's going to make no difference. My vote will go in, but obviously a Conservative's going to be elected. Yeah, let's waste my vote.
Yeah.
But there was that element of self-defeating, that element of self-flagellation that you're not going to get selected. That's okay. And like I said, I was genuinely sitting at the game going, "You guys are going to be great." And then the pre-selection, you guys are going to be awesome. But that was the only way I could do it. And of course, then when the email came through, it properly astounded me. And like Jay said earlier, they've got the wrong. That's it. You sent it to the wrong person. But it has had a really positive impact. I mean, I've been able to reduce my medication down as a consequence of this, which is a really good progress. Not by much, but it's still a positive step for me. I've accepted this condition. I've accepted that it will be a part of my life. I've made great friends out of this process already that will be a part of my life forever, that we will continue to work. I've had my wobbles. Even last week I had my wobbles, and I reached out to Jay, and I was having a not worthy wobble, but I had my tactics to kind of deal with it, and I intend. If I'm being brutally honest, I'm slightly nervous as to when this process ends, when the Invictus process ends. I am nervous about that. But I can't do anything about that right now, and that's the kind of feeling I've got. I can't do anything about that. We'll deal with it when it comes along.
Okay, I mean, Jay on the podcast, he found the comedy during lockdown. Were you kind of similar timing? Have you been doing it shorter, longer? And how did it feel to get up on the stage for the first time?
Yeah, it was the lockdown thing. Basically, it just all nicely slotted in, and I just thought, fuck it, I'll give it a go. As just a fuck it, why not? I've got nothing else to do, might as well. And go on.
No, sorry, I can answer this after, but I'd love to know how lockdown affected you guys. Like, was it actually fantastic because you didn't have to do anything?
For me, it was horrific because we were in a pandemic, so I was reliving Ebola every single day.
God, yeah.
So the lockdowns, thank Christ for Project Comedy. It's what kept me alive, because those evenings I was getting together with the likes of Gabe and Jamie and what have you, learning stand-up and finding a way to turn darkness into light. Or, as you know, with stand-up comedy, if it's not funny, you throw it away. So I was going through absolute personal hell. But once a week, I was able to get together with these guys, learn stand-up comedy, and throw away darkness. So stand-up literally helped me. I ended up doing so many Zoom gigs because that was the only circuit. I could sit here on my boat with the dodgiest Wi-Fi connection known to man. I mean, even Aldi would reject my Wi-Fi. They'd never put that in the bargain aisle. The Wi-Fi I've got here. But I was able to entertain people in Australia and America and Canada and what have you. And they went, actually, this is great for me. So yeah, lockdown was horrible, but it gave me a new outlet. Because my main outlet was archery. Now I've got archery and comedy. Brilliant. I'm happy.
Was that similar?
Yeah, for me, because everything had shut down, it was like it was the very first sort of time I had nothing to do. So then I started like, Mel, bless her as well, like was just sort of like, well, just start doing stuff for you, and I really started looking after, sorting myself out, my head out, and really sort of making myself better, really. So where all the little stresses would wind me up and shake the bottle, I joked about them instead,
And I was fortunate enough to actually see Gabe's first ever in-person live set. So we all went up to Salford with our mentor, Jay Saunders. So the three of us actually managed to perform with Jay, and seeing Gabe outside of a Zoom gig to do his first one. And I'll tell you what, Gabe is brilliant at crowd work. It's the way that he can. I am terrified of crowd work. Gabe is a natural at it. And some of his material was very close to the edge, especially on LGBTQ plus, which is a fantastic set. You've got to see him on our YouTube channel. And we had a few members of that community in the audience. They were the people laughing the hardest at it. I've never seen a man relax so much in my life when he's got all the lesbians and gays in the room pissing themselves laughing and giving permission to the rest of the audience.
I'm allowed to do that now, though, because my daughter's a lesbian, so.
You got that card now? Yeah. Lesbian ally.
I'll tick that box now.
Right, at least you're not humming, so that's one bonus. Right. Oh my goodness, this is the kind of thing that I would just carry on. I mean, you guys are fantastic. I just cannot explain how appreciative I am for your service, for everything you did to bring you to where you are now. Just
drink a lot.
The journeys you've been on. Drink a lot. But sharing your stories as well, because this podcast is, I don't know, I don't really know what it is. Where this is going to be about. Well, it's actually going to before four others that I've got recorded for the coming weeks, and some are funny, light-hearted, some are, I don't know, serious but not deep. Just people have got opinions and they want to share it. There's one that will be coming out. I made sure it was after this one, about a guy who doesn't like the monarchy, and that's up to him. I'm not here to dull voices, but this conversation, it's a tale of two halves, because that first half was, I mean, that was deep. Just hearing you guys talk openly and honestly, it's, I mean, puts so much into perspective, I think, and I can't thank you enough.
I think the one thing all three of us share in common, is we want to talk about this stuff because we want. It doesn't matter if you're military or not. If you've got PTSD or mental health problems, start talking, start getting therapy. Yeah. We don't want people ending up going down the holes we did. Your life is actually worth something. You deserve a moment of joy. If one person listens to this and goes, do you know what? I can end up being that ill and I can still have a laugh and I can still find a moment of joy. That's what we're doing these things for. That's why me and Rich are doing Invictus. It's why me and Gabe are doing stand-up. You deserve that moment of joy.
Will you shut up for a minute? All right. And far too many people. You done?
Children.
Far too many people have become a statistic You know, it's something that shouldn't be happening anymore. Now you can fucking carry on, Jay. You can't.
No, I'm going to mute him.
I'll stick me oar in. My 15-year-old lad, who I'm very proud of him, we all are as well, but he's got an emotional maturity beyond his years. He made a point last week. He said, Dad, he said, I know that June is, LGBTQ month. I said, yeah. He said, did you also know it's Men's Mental Health Month? And I said, you know what? Interestingly, I had heard that. He said, why are people not giving it as much attention as they do with the whole LGBT pride marches? And this 15-year-old lad, and I sat down and I said, you know what? You're absolutely right. It is Men's Mental Health Month. And he and I talk. He knows that he's witnessed a few difficult moments for me, and he understands that. But it's to my great shame that at 15 years old, I've not been able to protect him from this initially. But actually now, as he sort of matures and he sees things like this, actually, I think it's good for him to see me talking about it, me exposing him to it, and hearing about it. But the fact that he at 15 is sitting there going, I don't understand. He's open-minded and he's got nothing against that kind of community. But he's like, why are we spending a whole month talking about this when it's also Men's Mental Health Month? Where are the flags for that? And it's like, I don't have any answers for you, son, but that's not a bad point to raise. And I think that's a problem. That is a problem.
I mean, it's and the things. I mean, the two issues are separate, aren't they? Because I'm very vocal for men's mental health, mental health in general, men's mental health, because popular to contrary belief, I am one, and it is too, and it's unfortunate that the two coincide, because both are important conversations, and men's mental health isn't spoken about enough, and actually I can almost appreciate kind of a Pride Month more than a Men's Mental Health Month, because first of all, people aren't talking about it, and the second of all, condensing it to a month. It's a conversation that has to be continuous. Like just saying, hey, we're going to do a bit of awareness for this month, but then we're going to expect everyone just not to talk about it.
And let's be absolutely honest about it. A pride march, a pride rally is going to look delightful, glorious, and joyful. Can you imagine a mental health march? I'm depressed. I want to kill myself. Kill me now. It's not going to be a great march to go along and support.
It'd just be everyone lying in the street hoping people would run over them.
Somebody kill me now. Who's going to kill me? You. Who's going to kill me? That bloke.
All the pharmacies just closing down.
We need a PTSD style Invictus Games. But 3 months before everybody stops their medication, it'll be like the fucking Hunger Games. It'll be fucking great.
Oh, mate, that would be epic. Can you imagine the blood on the streets?
Like Jerry Springer, Black Friday, and the Hunger Games all run into one. It'd be fucking ace.
Oh, my
God. Everything. Just stop the medication and see what happens. Televise it.
Germany would not know what hit them. I mean, it would be the rise of the Fourth Reich. It would be beautiful to witness.
Just like that as well, over the megaphone. Ladies and gentlemen, we're just letting you know there are 20 50 milligram diazepams in a box. Where are they?
And our next is the 4x400 suicide event.
Yeah.
4x400 suicide.
God, the TV channel's got to pick that up. That's a sort of E4 way to happen, isn't it?
Do you know one thing that I'm working on for my stand-up bit as well is like making a euthanasia fun park. So you go around and you do the roller coaster, and then like a fucking saw comes in and just whaps your head off. Do you know what I mean? Make it a good ride. Make it last. It'd be a health and safety nightmare, though, wouldn't it?
Well, I think that's the idea from the sound of it. Just have a kind of a room, like a lot of places that they've got. Oh, this is your smoking area. It's like, no, if you want to get run over by a bus, just stand over here.
That would be it. I mean, every one of the people watching the mental health parade would be standing in front of the floats to get run over.
Do you know what I'd love to see as well? Like people going in, right? So people go to doctors and stuff and say like, oh, I want this like miracle cure to sort of like make me vanish. And they just give them some water or something like that. And everyone goes around and treats them like, oh yeah, you're dead. Yeah, it's not a problem. And just fucking ignores them. Wouldn't that be so fucking cool? People could get the experience of being dead, but not actually be dead. It'd be great.
You're deeply wrong, mate. I love you.
I was going to say on a show called Geoff Jones and Friends makes it better. I'm not sure we've quite hit the answer yet.
Although I'm going to be laughing, you know, when we get off this as well. Jeff goes like that, and I'm here joined by two people. Who's just going to completely
No. We're not going to turn this into Jeff's first episode. It's not.
PTSD Island up in Scotland.
Oh, mate!
PTSD
Let's
Island.
make it happen. We need to send that to Endemol. PTSD Island would be epic.
No, that's it. But you're only eligible if you PTSD, but you've got to agree to stop taking medication up to 3 months before. And you just, you know, you make it like the Hunger Games. You put weapons around or medication. It's I think it's a top-rated hit. I think it'd be great. PTSD Island.
Jay's gone to the diary room. He's having a disassociation. He's talking to all the dead bodies in Sierra Leone.
Dave's talking to a tree whilst wanking. What could go
Day
wrong
54 and Gabe's humming.
Yeah.
Amazing Grace. Again.
Gabe's dissociated from the camp that much. He's just doing back-to-back wanks now because he's procrastinating to do off any of the dishes.
We copyright PTSD Island. Give us a shout, and we'll executive produce it for you.
It's on recording, so that's official. Right, and actually, the first thing I'm going to do once we stop recording is record the warning for the beginning of the episode.
I'd say what the first thing that you're going to do is have a shower and get the dirt off.
There we go. I don't do speechless often. I think one other episode's had me quite speechless, but you guys have been just amazing. I'm going to have to stop because otherwise the whole thing goes, or because it's going to be too much to edit out. No, and that is not. It all stays in, apart from maybe one bit. And actually, yeah, what I'm going to do, I'll edit it out, and no one's going to know what it is. So this is it's the kind of conversation, you know. I mean, I think in the realms of making it better, PTSD Island and a march is great, but it's the conversations, isn't it? And actually, you know, Jay came on and spoke before about it. We're doing this for the Awareness Day, Mental Health Month is kind of part of that. However, it almost feels, as I said, cheap or sad to do it just for that day, when actually I should be letting you guys chat, or you should be chatting, not just to me, to everyone, and anyone with PTSD should have the power to talk all year round for the rest of the time, into the conversation as part of the norm, because it's not one that you hear about. When you hear about mental health and the banner of it, PTSD either is not spoken about or it's not understood. And I've gained a massive understanding from you guys, from Jay previously as well. It was amazing for me. I think listeners, anyone who made it to the end, I hope you took something from it. I hope you share it with someone if you know. Yeah, if like you guys, if there's someone listening to it and they can see these aspects in someone else or themselves or anyone, and they think, hey, do you know what? Have you thought maybe it's PTSD? I mean, it's been amazing. It's been a very much a podcast of two halves.
As we said at the beginning, mate, everybody deserves a bit of joy. This episode starts dark, but by the end of it, you can see there is joy available to anybody that's suffering with what we're suffering with.
But you know what? It's a beautiful story, because it is that, you know, tell the story of what happened and how you felt. But now you three are sat here telling jokes, laughing about subjects which people may listen to and think, how can you talk about suicide in such a way because they've experienced it? Well, being people that have been in that situation, have been around people who have taken that option, I think it gives you the power to, doesn't it? It gives you the right to discuss it your way, because, and was it the popular phrase these days, it's your truth, it's your story, it's you. There's no right or wrong way to deal with grief and PTSD, mental health. It's as I think it's you said, Rich, yourself, it's you, it's personal to you, and this is how you deal with it. And anyone wants to come in, that's fine. Just show your credentials. If someone's willing to be as open as you guys, fantastic. But just remember, this is your stories and your truths, and everyone else can go to hell.
One thing that I'd like to say as well is, like, no matter who you are, however dark it ever gets, there are people out there that care about your family, your friends, even people just in the health sector. They care enough.
Do you know of any charities that help? Is there anything specific out there?
For veterans, look at people like Combat
Mine's
Stress. Reach out to the RBL, Walking with the Wounded. There are some great support networks out there. If you're lucky enough to have a First Light Trust near you, reach out to them.
Yeah, so the good old Samaritans, they're always there. They've been there consistently, and they're always there. Failing that, reach out to a trusted friend, reach out to a mate, reach out to anybody, anyone at all. I think all I want to do, just revisit and just remind people, is this thing isn't you. It doesn't own you. No matter how dark it gets, no matter how much of it erodes you, like it did me, it eroded me to the point where it just took me all my common sense away, and you've got to have an anchor, have something that you can, no matter how bad it gets, you've got that fixed point. It could be a person, it could be an object, it could be a happy memory or something. Find an anchor. And I sat right here, right where I'm sat now. And if you'd have told me at that moment that, a year or so later, I'd be here, I would not have accepted. I wouldn't have believed you at all. Feeling the way I'm feeling, I absolutely wouldn't. It's there is always a path out. You just got to find it.
No, I don't think there'll be a better moment. I don't bring this to a close. I think make it better. We keep talking about it. If you feel it, reach out. I'll share as much in the bio as far as links to all the services the gents have been through. Yeah, also their comedy and Invictus Games I'll be watching. Cheering on. Looking forward to it. It's been fantastic. If anyone made it past Gabe's Gags and you're still here, then thank you. I think it's important to say that, I am going to turn into the old BBC now. If you have been affected by anything that's covered on this podcast, but look, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because some people may get annoyed or angry, but they may just be looking for their own answers, right?
Yeah.
They may not have come to terms with or dealt with, and that's fine. So reach out and talk, because that's what we want to do, right? That's what everyone needs to do. Talk.
Totally.
Right. So on this very special PTSD Awareness Day episode of Geoff Jones and Friends Make It Better, it is a very thankful, I'm in a state of kind of amazement, bewilderment, but also just absolute admiration for Jay. So Jay, please say thank you and goodbye.
Thanks, folks.
You don't have to say thank you. Just say goodbye. Actually, you don't have to say thank you.
Goodbye.
Rich, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much. It's goodbye from Rich.
Take care, all.
And Gabe, appreciate your time. It's goodbye from Gabe.
Bye.
Thank you very much, gents.